Ever since I was a child, I wanted to travel the world, and then when I became an adult, I was able to turn that dream into reality. And from the years 2012 to 2017, I traveled to 33 countries on 5 continents. Then, from 2018 to 2020, I lived abroad in another country. And finally, a few months ago, I went to one more country, totaling 35 countries around the world. And you might think that I had a lot of money in order to do that, but I didn't. I funded all the trips minus the final 2 countries, with the job paying me about $8 an hour. I made it work because I stayed in budget accommodation, I ate basic foods, and I went to more affordable countries with a monthly budget of around $800 to $1,000 a month. In traveling the world with very little money, almost no money, really teaches you a lot about money. And so in this video, I want to share 6 different lessons that I learned from traveling to 35 countries on a shoestring budget. So let's begin. 1. You can accomplish anything financially if you spend less and save more. I left for my first trip abroad when I was 19 years old, 1 month after graduating high school. And when my mom dropped me off at the airport, I had a ticket to Dublin, Ireland, and $5,000 to spend. Now, a 19-year-old having $5,000 doesn't just happen. In order to save that amount of money, I had to come up with a financial plan. And so my 16-year-old brain came up with a very complex financial plan: spend less and save more. And to this day, at age 30, this is the most effective financial plan that I can think of, because when your spending decreases, your saving naturally increases. And over time, this formula allows you to reach your goal. However, in order for this formula to work, there is a catch. You must have patience, consistency, discipline, and sacrifice. So many people think that in order to accomplish something financially, you either have to be making a lot of money or come into a lot of money. But the truth is, you can accomplish anything financially if you just spend less and save more. And it might not be the quickest formula, but I funded all my trips around the world with this one simple equation. 2. You enjoy things to the fullest when you use your own money. In the beginning, traveling was not an enjoyable thing for me. Traveling is a very uncomfortable thing to do because you don't always know what you're eating. You stand out like a sore thumb, and you don't understand the full context of things. But I eventually started to enjoy traveling because I followed an equation that looked like this. Before I received the reward of traveling, I had to be patient, disciplined, consistent, and sacrifice to afford the trips. I put in the work first and received the reward second. Whereas the majority of people in this world follow a different equation in order to get what they want in life, and it looks like this. They get the reward first and put in the work second. And this is because they use a cheat code called credit. And the majority of people in this world choose to get the reward first without putting in the effort, which is why the average American has $10,000 to $20,000 of consumer debt. People want things in life without putting in the work. However, when you look at these 2 equations side by side, this equation makes the reward sweeter because you understand the effort it took to receive the reward. And when you understand the effort that it took in order to get the reward, you end up appreciating and enjoying it more, just like I came to enjoy the experience of traveling. And I think whatever you want in life, whether that's a new phone, new clothes, or a trip around the world, put in the effort, put in the work first, because when you understand the effort it took beforehand, the reward is much sweeter. 3. You experience more with less. When I was traveling around the world, I didn't have much. My normal budget was around $800 to $1,000 a month, and all my possessions fit in a small 40-liter backpack. And when you're traveling with so little, you end up experiencing more because cheap accommodation gives you access to meet more people. Eating cheaper local foods allows you to experience the culture, and having less makes you more mobile to move around. You end up getting a much richer experience with less, and I think that this motto applies to everyday life because when you live modestly, you can relate to more people. When you don't live in abundance, you're more grateful for what you have. And when you have less possessions, your possessions don't hold you back. Being able to travel the world with very little money and very little possessions gave me an experience that I couldn't have gotten if I had a lot of money and a lot of possessions. And I think that when you live a life of less, obviously not having nothing, but not living a life of abundance, you end up living a richer life because you have a more human experience. 4. You are better off financially than most people in this world. In all my travels around the world, the most exotic place that I ever went to was Myanmar or Burma. It was kind of like going back 100 years in time because agriculture was basic, trains had never been updated, and things just looked very old. And it was also the most impoverished place that I have ever been because you see all these people living in these terrible conditions that lack very basic things. And when you see this type of extreme poverty, it really shows you how unfair life is because they're in this terrible condition, not because of bad decisions or unwillingness to work, but simply because of geographic location. People are in these bad situations simply because where they're born, it's the lottery of life. And when you realize this, it really puts in perspective how much you have because the financial struggles that we often talk about are not being able to afford superficial things, or short-term recessions, or small inflation periods. And although these are legitimate problems, they're the problems of the privileged because we often never have to worry about affording these basic essentials like food, water, and shelter. And I think that when you understand how small our problems are, it makes you grateful for what you have and makes you worry a little bit less. 5. Money can solve problems, or at least make a bad experience easier. In my final long trip around the world, I was in Madrid, Spain trying to get home, but I was flying on standby, which basically means that I could only get on the plane if a seat was available. Because I was a baller on a budget and I could not afford a full price plane ticket. And when I talked to the ticket agent, she told me that there was no chance that I would leave Spain for the entire month. So what I did is I took a bus from Madrid to Malaga, then flew from Malaga to London. Then when I arrived in London, I flew out the next day. Which, looking back, doesn't make much sense, but this is the connection that my 23-year-old brain came up with because there's much more flights in London than there were in Madrid. But once I got there, I just kept throwing money at it, trying to get home, and eventually I was able to get a seat on standby, first class, of course. First class or no class, ladies and gentlemen, you know how I roll. But after that experience, I learned that money can actually solve problems in our lives because by throwing money, by constantly throwing money, the extra money I had at this problem, I was eventually able to get home. I made that bad experience much easier because I had money. And I think in life, when you have some extra money, you are able to make a bad experience much easier to get through. 6. The biggest investment you can make is in yourself. Now that I did all that traveling, I don't have as much desire to travel as I used to. Honestly, one thing I came to understand is the beauty of living in your own country with your own culture and your own customs. And I'm talking about America, sweet America. He crowned that good, yes he did, in brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. Would a El Augustine video be complete without me singing? I do not think so, ladies and gentlemen. But although I don't want to travel as much as I used to, I'm extremely grateful that I did it because those experiences got me out of my comfort zone, allowed me to grow as a person, and see things that most people dream about. There's a quote by Warren Buffett that goes, "The best investment you can make is in yourself." And I think the big lesson from traveling to over 35 countries around the world is that the investment that gives the biggest return is on experiences, memories, and knowledge. Because nobody can take those things away from you. They remain with you for the rest of your life. And so we should use our money more on those things because those things allow us to live much richer lives. And with that, muchas gracias. Que tenga un día, video 138. Nos vemos.